to another episode of Strange Waves. I am your host, Robert, and today we're going to talk about urban exploration. Before I even knew that there was a term for it, I was doing it. I am now 38 years old. The first time that I was involved in such a venture, I was probably, it was before I could drive, I have to say probably 13 years old. A friend of mine said, hey, down the road away, like a few miles, is this building that's vacant. Let's go check it out. Sweet. Now, you're probably like, well, how do you know you even enjoyed stuff like that? Before that even, I used to go to my grandparents' house, and there was a house probably, again, a few miles away from their house. I'd ride my bike by, and I was always intrigued. This place was abandoned. Then I was probably, I don't know, 10 years old? I don't know. I'm not sure how I was young. Old enough to ride my bike that far. And the house always intrigued me. I'm like, why is it empty? Why doesn't anybody live in it? Why, if nobody lives in it, why isn't it torn down? You know, so that was probably the first. There was another house that, going to my grandparents, was kind of the same situation. It was just abandoned, and I was just curious. So we went down anyway. Back to the original. We went down to the house, and it was this really cool stuff, like brick, two-story. I think it was two-story. I think so. I think it was a two-story, like an old farmhouse or something. There was something a little creepy about it, though. You know, we went through it, and it's just kind of strange. The basement, like, it looked like there was to us, it was a hidden room that they knocked the brick out and exposed. Could have been just a doorway, the bricks fell out of it. I don't know. But you know how people are, especially kids, you know, you make it up as you go. But what was creepy about it was there was all this paper on the floor, and we didn't have a flashlight, but we, for some reason, had a lighter. So we took the paper, wrapped it around a stick, and made a torch. So we checked out the whole basement that way. And come to find out, the paper, because the flames were weird. It was like green and blue, and it was all like psychedelic looking fire. And I was like, man, that's weird. So when we were done exploring, we I picked up some of this paper, and I was like trying to figure out what it was, and unfortunately it was the Bible. That kind of made me super uneasy. Like, oh, somebody's in an abandoned house tearing up the Bible. Great. So anyway, that was my first exploration. Soon as I could drive, there was a handful of other places. There was an old house that it was across from this like community, like neighborhood out in the, but it was out in the country. So, you know, I took my camera and took pictures, and I mean, it had stuff in it, you know, like old furniture and stuff. Long story short, there was some occult stuff that went on there. There was like the floor had been swept in a circle, and wax Like different places around the circle had wax melted, so you could tell they've been doing something there. But there was a lot of interesting things like old medicine bottles and stuff like that. So I'd gone probably half a dozen times before I noticed something strange, and then it dawned on me what it was. The house had holes in the wall because the neighborhood kids or something had been shooting like holes through the wall. I mean, this house was like Swiss cheese. It upstairs and downstairs just covered in bullet holes. I was like, probably should not stay after the sun starts to set. I don't know when they start shooting up the building, but it was a very cool. That was one of my first that I actually spent a lot of time in, took pictures and all that. There was a few others. There was one, a guy had passed away in the house, and it was like nothing had been updated since, like, I don't even know. I want to say like the 60s. Like, old sewing machine, a TV that was, 3 feet wide, but the actual screen was only like a foot. I mean, like a foot by a foot, 12 inches by 12 inches. I mean, it was just really old stuff, and it was really exciting to go around and see some of the old stuff. But the guy had passed away, and I don't think he had any family. What was sad was, like, we went up to where his bed was. It was just a mattress on the floor, and there was like blood on it, and not a lot, but enough that it was like, oh man, that's sad. So there was that one. There was an old schoolhouse, that one-room schoolhouse, and there's always like pentagrams, but this one had a dead animal in it, so it's not. I was not entirely sure that somebody might have taken a dead thing and put it in there, just like, hey, let's freak people out. So I don't know for sure, but it was still creepy, and took pictures of it anyway. So there was that house. There was another schoolhouse. I think it was a 2-story. The lady lived there, plus she taught the kids there, and that was a real cool place too. There was an old factory that I went into one time. The first time I tried to get into it, I went, like, there's storm drains like beside the building, and I like shimmied down, which is really stupid, into a storm drain that went into like the basement, but they tore the stairway out, so I couldn't get up through it. But I eventually got into this old factory, and it was like, man, it was straight out of like Nightmare on Elm Street. Like, there's flickering lights, like it was well creepy. They stored a lot of like printing press stuff, like old like metal plated. It's like a metal plate, and then it's attached to a piece of wood, and they would like make newspapers and stuff with it. So they stored a lot of that, and that was pretty cool to see. There was a walk-in safe that the door was open about 6 inches, and if you pried it really hard, it would come open, but it would snap back to that 6 inches. And I was like, man, I do not want to get myself stuck in there, because nobody was with me at the time, and I do a lot of it by myself, which probably isn't the best idea, but I have some precautions with that. But that's another time. Let's see, where else did I go into when I was younger? The places I told you about, close to my grandparents' place. When I became an adult, I drove back there with a camera. I wish I would have kept the film. It wasn't digital. This was way back with tapes and stuff. Um, I have misplaced or lost a lot of that. Um, Even some of the pictures I don't even have anymore, unfortunately. I have the negatives. I just never have digitized them. But um, the one on the way to my grandparents' house, I went in. I made the mistake of parking my car in a cemetery. Didn't think much of it. Um, Apparently, it was an Amish cemetery, and they were not too happy that I had a motorized vehicle in their cemetery. And so while I was in this house taking pictures and looking around, I heard this noise. I don't even know how I heard it. I looked out the back of, through the house, through this window, and there's probably 6 to 8 angry Amish guys yelling something. I don't remember what language they speak. It's like Yiddish or something. But hey, if you know, post it below. But they they were ticked off. They were coming for me, so I wasn't going to hang around to see what they had in store. So I ran out, got in my car. By the time I backed it out, they were like on my uh, bumper. Like I took off, and yeah, that was not very smart. I've grown in wisdom because of the mistakes that I've made. But the other uh, house that was by my grandparents, I went there, and it was like there was boxes and boxes of books, and it really made me sad because it was like these books were printed like pre 1900. There was just boxes of them. I could tell there was a room that was upstairs just like a library. Um, but by the time we got there, they were covered in mold, rat poop, and whatever else that was festering in that place. But that was a really cool find. I wish I had the video still. I have pictures of the outside, but I don't even know if I have pictures of the inside. I don't think they turned out. But yeah, so that's how I got into it. I was really young. Like I said, I've learned a lot. How to act, how to, prepare. I went to a place. It was an old train depot. It was really small, but when I got there, I was going around taking pictures, and I realized that people had been squatting there, and that's kind of new to me. Like, I didn't grow up in the city, so when I saw that, it kind of took me a minute to put two and two together, and then it kind of freaked me out because I'm like, is there somebody sleeping in there now? Which, to this day, I have to, be diligent about that. And anybody who does any kind of exploration like that needs to be under the impression that somebody could be there, and they could be not in good mental shape. They could, they might see it as their house, and you don't want to upset somebody who is, not completely, stable mentally. So, yeah, it kind of freaked me out when I was in there because I found a bed, and I think there was, like drug paraphernalia, needles, and stuff like that. Like I said, it was all kind of new to me anyway. But yeah, I started doing that. I eventually kind of slowed down because when I moved from where I was to Kentucky, the difference between where I was and Kentucky is the places that I was used to were run down and nobody lived there. And to be not try to be as nice as I can in Kentucky and southern Indiana, people still live in places. I mean, there's people living in houses that don't have windows, air conditioning, heat. You know, that it looks like the house is abandoned, and it's not. You can't just walk up on a place and just, you can't expect, or you go into it thinking that somebody's there, living there, until you find out otherwise. That's how you just have to operate, because if not, you're going to be in trouble. When in doubt, you probably shouldn't, because some of these people in the country, because a lot of places I go are in the country, and somebody's living there, they may be trigger happy. Who knows? So, but yeah, I mean that's how I got started. I love country, old country houses, but factories and stuff. That stuff is awesome. And I've done a few videos of factories and ammunitions plants and stuff, and I hope to do some more soon. Got some places planned. I just gotta get out and do them. So yeah, that's kind of the history of how I got started, and I'm really stoked that there's people on YouTube making videos, the things that I could never, I would have loved to have gotten involved with a lot of that, like the exploring group, like with Josh. I mean, that's just, I love watching his stuff, or the proper people. I mean, there's, Dan Bell. I mean, I can go on and on. There's some people that, I don't dig some of their stuff, because there's a few things like, and I don't dig the idea of exposing dead people who have passed away. I think that's disrespectful. And if I ever come across that, I don't even know if I would ever take the video or whatever and edit out that part. I don't think maybe I'd make a video, talking about the experience, but it's not cool to, there's dignity in death, and there's some aspects like, Josh had done, where he went, to Paris, or, under, the catacombs, or, things like that. That's I don't know, that's different. But to, like, there was this whole situation where they went, these people went out to the suicide forest, and they got a lot of flack for that, and I think they should, because it was not like, oops, I think that is a person, and then, like cut it, like, oh, let's stop filming. But it was like, they just kept filming, and it was almost like they were just numb to it, and that's sad, because that's somebody's life. No matter if it's somebody who naturally died, or took their own life, or was murdered, it's just, it's not necessary. So I've never come across that. I've come across a lot of dead animals, not quite, and I didn't know they were animals. I thought one thing was like I went to a house and I thought it was a fur coat, ended up being like a fox or something had like basically its skin had become, I don't know. There was bones on top of the skin, but the hair and everything was still there. And I thought it was a fur coat, so it was gross. Lots of that. Lots of rat feces. Lots and lots. I mean, I've seen so much. I was in a place once. It was so much. I thought for sure there was a dog in there. The rat must have been the size of my cat. It was pretty crazy. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of. I really, rabbit trail. Back to where we were talking. There's a lot of people I respect on YouTube, and they're going places that I could just, I would dream to go if I could. I would be going to places like that. But good for them, man. That's super cool, and and I'm glad that they can experience cool stuff like that. So. Yeah, it's kind of funny that that's something I was doing when I was younger became such a big thing. I never thought like, one day I'm just gonna make money exploring abandoned buildings and weird stuff. It never even crossed my mind. Why didn't my school counselor tell me I could do that? Yeah. So anyway, thanks. This is episode thrice. Thanks for joining and hanging out. And keep coming back and don't be strange. No. Be strange. Don't be a stranger. Yeah. Check out my links at the end. Got black and white photography on Facebook. I have a Facebook page. And I have a Zazzle store. It's got some interesting stuff. If you'd like to see some other product or some other photograph for sale, let me know. I'll put it up on Zazzle or figure out some way to get it, get it available. But check out Strange Abandonment, which is connected to Strange Ways. That's my abandoned building, house, structure videos. Some of it's just going to be strange stuff, like strange cemeteries and just whatever I accidentally hit record and record. So come check it out. And till next time, be excellent to each other.